I'm going to have a very short introduction. I'm going to try to limit my speaking at the very beginning. Two general questions. Please try to keep it between 5 to 7 minutes, the first answer. And because we are online, the possibility of interrupting and interaction between the participants is limited. Please let me know, like just give me a sign when you want to give a comment. I will keep the track of your willingness to comment, and I will come back to you. Okay, and do you have any questions whatsoever?
No, fine.
Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Just to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
I was wondering, Marek, whether it would be more of a monologue or if you would spur and facilitate the...
I will try to, I would prefer us to meet live and have a discussion, but my experience with the online panel discussions is that there is a mess, you know, like audio mess when we are trying to make people talk with each other. So I would ask you to give the first answer as clear as possible for the 5 minutes, and then I would be asking you questions. If you want to comment, if you want to ask the question, just give me a sign and let me know.
Exactly. So that was the question. You would ask a first question at the beginning, which you would answer in circa 5 minutes. Then you would become
5 to 7 minutes. And Agnieszka, you would be the first person to be asked, okay?
Okay, that's fine.
What's the order of the others?
Agnieszka, Elena, Libor, and you, Daniel. Daniel Farmash, this is the right pronunciation? Farmaken. Okay, thank you.
I don't mind Farmash either.
Okay. And Agnieszka, you are in the Warsaw studio.
Yes, and it looks really amazing. So you guys need to really be sorry for not being here. It looks really great.
I actually envy you. I was planning to be there as I'm in Warsaw as well, but the fun fact is that I'm waiting for my results of the COVID test, which is, you know, like a kind of a tricky time.
Hope it's going to be fine.
Yes, yes.
So we had a bit of an issue broadcasting to hop in. So we're now live on YouTube. Everybody has the link and they will be watching us there. So we are now live. We can start.
Okay. Welcome everybody. I hope that, you know, like the connection is good and you can hear us. My name is Marek Teichman. I'm a deputy editor-in-chief of Dziennik Gazeta Prawna. We are a Polish daily focusing mainly on legal and business news. And I'm very happy to welcome the panelists. Agnieszka Gajewska, CE Government and the Public Sector Leader and Capital Projects for Capital Projects and Infrastructure for PwC. Hi, Agnieszka. Hello.
Hi, Marek.
Elena Popdorova, Vice President of ATA. Hello, Elena. Nice to join that you are joining us. Hello. We have Libor Lohman, Executive Director for CER. Hello, Libor.
Hi, everybody.
And Daniel Farmach, CEO of Infra. Hi, Daniel. Hello. Well, we were asked to focus our discussion on infrastructure and connectivity. It's quite a wide area to cover, especially that we are supposed to talk about linking the emerging Europe within and beyond, and to have a look on where we are right now and where we are going to be in the future when it comes to the economy. And this is kind of a challenge. For the last couple of months, I was doing a number of interviews with the Polish business leaders and people leading businesses that are investing in Central Eastern Europe, mainly industrial, asking them how the COVID situation changed basically the industry. And one of the things that I heard is that basically that kind of a revolution is speeding up the processes that were happening before. One of those processes was the fact that the very fast digitalization and automation of the economy meant that part of the industrial chain was being brought back to the final consumer. And what happened during this year when it comes to the life science industry, to the industrial production, was a huge challenge for the supply chains, problems faced by many companies. And some business leaders believe that it will only speed up the process of moving the industry back to Europe. And when we are talking about industry, when we are talking about e-commerce, we are talking about, and we are putting it into Central Eastern European perspective, we understand that we can highly benefit from that move, but only if we are prepared. And being prepared means having the right infrastructure, both in a sense of moving the products, but as well providing services that are more and more available and delivered online. So my first general questions for you is, like, where do you see the biggest challenges for our region when it comes to the whole infrastructure and connectivity? What should be done, how it should be done, and how do you understand the whole idea of the connectivity and infrastructure in the economy of the future? Because it's going to be different, and different things are going to be needed to provide the infrastructure. Agnieszka, can we start with you?
It's a very complicated and complex question, I would say, but I've heard sitting here before that the complex questions are the most interesting ones. So let's crack this one. My thinking is, let's crack this question looking at the business as usual. So what normally we deal with when we're talking about infrastructure challenges in our region. And let's have a special look at how the COVID situation impacted the situation in infrastructure sector as such, and in emerging Europe in particular. And if we're looking at the business as usual, things haven't changed that much because of the COVID. Couple of years ago, as PwC, we've done such a research together with Expert Economics, and we come up with a starting number of $3 trillion of infrastructure gap that there is in broadly defined Central and Eastern Europe. It includes Russia, it includes CIS countries, but irrespective of how you look at this number, $3 trillion dollars is a very, very big number. If you're looking only at the transportation needs, you will also get to the territories of $600 billion dollars, again, a very big number. So the gap is here, and wherever we talk to investors about how much progress we've made, it seems never to be enough. Yes, so we still have like lots and lots of connections to be built, and irrespective of the fact that we've done like a tremendous progress over the last, let's say, 10, 20 years, as it comes to building infrastructure, maintaining infrastructure, there is still lots to be done. If you look at the ease of doing business reports, each and every year we have, we're looking at different indicators, and efficient infrastructure is one of the areas where our countries, different from country to country, but as a general rule, we are still having lots and lots to do. So this haven't changed, and COVID situation impacted, I would say, our way of looking at infrastructure in a slight way, but definitely the gap is still there, and somehow it needs to be bridged. Now, you ask a very interesting question about how we understand connectivity, and I think what is quite interesting, especially if we're talking about interconnectivity of the region and also connectivity of the region with the outside world, is that irrespective of the infrastructure being built and us making a huge progress here, there are still like many bottlenecks, and these are the key issues that needs to be addressed. When we're looking at the map, it is also quite obvious that the connections from west to east are much better than the connections from the north to the south. So this is also something that when we're looking at the network, this network is not very balanced, if you want to use this word. And we are also having some very clear missing links. And this is about the transport infrastructure, but it is also the case with energy infrastructure and so on. Now, the ever I would say a big problem in the region for many years have been not only access to capital, which clearly is a big problem for many countries, but also the good and workable pipeline of projects. And this is something that the COVID situation has not changed, has not impacted. If anything, it has put so many problems on the plates of the governments that actually preparing the new projects is certainly right now not like the number one priority. So this is, I think, where we are, where we have been, and the COVID situation has not changed the situation really dramatically. Where I believe things have changed, and we've heard it even in your introductory speech earlier, is that the COVID definitely created some challenges and created some opportunities. In the intervention that we had over the previous comments that we had here, we're saying that there are some disrupted supply chains, but there are also many potential opportunities that our region can benefit from by onshoring, by shortening the supply chains. And of course, for this, we need more infrastructure. We need very efficient infrastructure. COVID situation has created the economic pressure on many countries, and clearly, historically, infrastructure has been like almost number one response to building the economic stimulus. Yeah? So whenever we had the economic crisis, the government tried to somehow pitch in and create the economic stimulus via infrastructure investments. And I think right now, as we've heard before, this has been a very unusual crisis. Question is, what are we going to do with this crisis, and whether we are able to build a better future and better infrastructure in the future, learned on the situation that we have right now. Specific thing may be about what COVID really created when we look at the infrastructure is clearly the traffic flows. You will see that we have 5 panelists today. Only I am physically here in Warsaw, whereas other people are sitting comfortably in their home offices. Clearly, we haven't used the planes, we haven't used railways, we haven't used the road, and this is very visible. So the traffic flows have dropped significantly. And I think right now the market is just looking at how long-term this impact is going to be, and how quickly the traffic flows are going to rebuild, and whether they will rebuild to the levels that they were from the COVID situation. And this is definitely something that put like lots and lots of pressure on operators, on governments, and also on the investors and the lenders. And this is something that needs to be taken into account, because if we're talking about building new infrastructure, we need to make sure that this infrastructure is really needed. And my final point, because I'm quite sure that our panelists have lots to offer and to add here, is that I really believe that COVID situation is sort of a once in a generation opportunity for us as it comes to designing and demanding infrastructure. There is really like a quite significant change in consumers' behaviors, quite a significant change in supply chains. So I think it is right now the time to build infrastructure, but we build it in a more sustainable way and build something that is really needed rather than something that we believe is needed.
Agnieszka, I need to ask one additional question. What is needed in your view? Because you said that we need to build infrastructure that is needed, and how to decide what is needed.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think this point, I've been in this market for the last 20 years, and this is precisely the questions I've been asked by every single client. It's a very valid question to ask. And I think, as always, we need to be able to have really robust analysis before deciding about any new piece of infrastructure. In the region, I think, right until today, for the last 20 years, the market was so unsaturated that pretty much everything that you put, every single piece of infrastructure that we put here was needed. Right now, I think in some countries in particular, we came to the point when the market is more or less saturated. We still have this big gap, but I think right now we absolutely need to be more selective on which piece of infrastructure will bring like the proper economic stimulus. So for example, if we're talking about our part of the world benefiting from the shorter and more efficient supply chains, which part of infrastructure will really bring this additional value to entrepreneurs and to the companies to help them be more competitive in the global markets?
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. Elena, can you tell me how you understand the very idea of connectivity? What we need in our region to increase the connectivity? What kind of infrastructure? What kind of investment? And how it was changed by the COVID situation? Elena, I think you need to unmute yourself. It's on the left side on down the screen. Oh yeah.
I was trying to be good and I unmuted myself right away in fear that I
very much appreciated.
The phone may ring or something may happen around to disrupt the conversation. Ironically, as I was saying, connectivity was only fairly recently brought to the table, but even before COVID struck. Because we, having gone through the euphoria of bringing together Europe as united, free and whole, having managed to kind of develop, expand the European Union, we were amiss a little bit of this very practical proof of this continent and the European Union as well being united in a practical, in a physical fashion. So I think that just about when we were realizing that, let's say, my part of Europe, Eastern Europe, was not kind of, I wouldn't say detached, but at least had so many problems connecting to the Western part of Europe. Agnieszka is, and you, both of you, you're lucky guys. Poland is not in a similar situation, but just imagine the geography and look at our corner of Europe. If I wanted to travel, now it's no travel at all, but if I wanted to travel by air from Sofia to, let's say, Bosnia, you wouldn't want to be there. You have to go up to Vienna and then fly down, or even Slovenia. You know, it's absurd. So gradually we started realizing that there is more to integration than just signing the papers and the treaties and all the rest. And when COVID hit, that became even more apparent. Because there is now what we need to do. We know that we need physical connectivity, but we also need to develop the virtual connectivity. So it should be, I think, when you ask me how I understand it, I think it's a blend of both. Virtual and physical connectivity. My fear is, however, that there is a growing digital divide, both among countries and within countries, because oftentimes it's right. Okay, you have great internet service. Yes, we do. In Bulgaria, we have excellent internet service, which does not mean digitalization yet, and kind of digital connectivity to the rest of partners in sectors, etc. So basically, this is one issue which I believe we need to look at when we obviously will have to live in a combined virtual and physical connectivity. How do we go about how we settle these issues of digital divide? Yes, this is, well, I remember your original question about chaos. Can chaos bring opportunity? And when you say chaos post-COVID, or no, not yet post, COVID-19 chaos. I of course, like Agnieszka said, I would immediately think of transport, but not just private travels. It's the whole big chunk of movement around. The fact of the matter is that probably this is one of the most hardly hit sectors of, and the scale of restrictions here is just mind-boggling. It's unprecedented. So we have several important characteristics of travel, like universal access, efficiency, safety, green mobility, which have all been put to question. And now the big question to me is, would COVID usher us into a totally new era of transport and logistics as well? I sit on the board of an American transportation company, and I see that even within a country which is well ahead in so many ways, and we will talk about this later, I can see, discussing day-to-day situations there, that it's changing totally. It's logistical approaches, it's supply chains, etc. So one big risk I think we may be running is if there would be temptation / necessity to localize manufacturing. If that would happen, would countries disconnect themselves from the global supply chain? I think this is a big risk.
Oh, Elena, you are touching a very interesting subject. That the part of the answer to the COVID crisis might be the rise of egoism,
yep.
and then, instead of building connectivity, we are actually going to compete in building another channels of communication with the markets. And this is something that is happening in Central Eastern Europe a lot. Countries are competing to bring the foreign investments. And at the end of the day, we are ending up having all the highways and trains, like running directly straight to Germany or to Italy, but not connecting Poland, Czech Republic, and Hungary strong enough.
Absolutely. And while I totally agree that infrastructure investment is indeed the answer, it does create the largest economic benefits because it's both jobs and durable assets. So yes, we all agree on principle, but then the question comes of what projects, and you ask the right question. And I will give you, and then I'll touch it briefly on the EU, because that's, oh my God, that's another big topic. But let's say we in Bulgaria and we, the Atlantic Club, we're trying to push forward a big infrastructure project, which is designed by a Bulgarian large infrastructure project company, which actually goes from the Baltic, from your part, from the Baltic, down through the Black Sea to the Aegean Sea. And it is everything. It's a multimodal project. And I'm telling you, it is extremely difficult to put it in the context of the European transport infrastructure, the TEN-T, because when the Eastern Partnership Program was developed and the EU agreed to put some 30 billion worth, I believe, investment altogether. It only covers the countries from the Eastern Partnership, which is fine, which is okay. This is for the rest of the group: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus. Right? Okay, but what happens further on? So. I think that an important actor in all this very complex matter is not just national governments, but the European Union. It's a hell of a process there, as we all know. But I believe that a flexible, a smooth and very transparent way needs to be developed in order to both engage the institutions there to support, not to hamper such large projects that are not a competition, because here all sorts of geopolitical arguments come in. Okay, this is a project which may kind of antagonize Russia, or China may not be happy because China would like to have its foot in, let's say, in Southeastern Europe, as we know, Serbia and other countries in my region. So it's all also a very political thing which needs to be put on the table honestly and discussed. One more point, and I'm finishing. As far as these projects are concerned, coordination, not just government to let's say EU or other organizations, and we will talk about the US as well, is needed, but also local coordination between the local government, local government and the central government. In my country, again, I don't know about others, but in my country, it's a problem. It's always a central decision, while the local decision-making is particularly important when it comes to infrastructure projects. I'm done.
Elena, thank you very much. Libor, the same question. How do you understand connectivity? What we have to do and what lessons we are having after the COVID experience?
Yeah, I mean, if you allow me, I would maybe start from a slightly different perspective. We have been talking a bit about the COVID, obviously. But I would like to connect it also with what the Union or the Commission, European Commission, has presented as so-called the Green Deal. Because what should we take is a connection between, or a connectivity, if you wish, then between the COVID crisis. That is also part of the next generation EU recovery plan, and that's essential so that we have really a robust plan of how to recover from the crisis, but linking it very wisely with the Green Deal ambitions, which are to have the zero emission economy by 2050. And this is the connectivity that we really have to establish at the first place. And this, of course, because I'm representing railway in Brussels vis-a-vis the EU policymakers, for us it's essential how to connect that idea of the Green Deal and the recovery from the crisis of the COVID-19, how to connect it also with the green mobility. And that's the other part of the connectivity. So how can we switch from the current situation that the transport is the most, I would say, one of the most emitting industrial sector, and it's the sector that emits the emissions, I would say, still on the rise. How to redevelop the situation and how really to have the transportation, how to have the transportation enabling the future connectivity with the zero emissions. This is something that we are going to see as a part of the EU strategy for the smart and sustainable mobility that the Commission is going to present later this year. And this again will bring me to what do we expect from the infrastructure and the investment into infrastructure and the connectivity. Because we talk about the mobility, we have to talk about the green mobility. For me, it's essential to have the connectivity both by investing to the hard infrastructure. So how to build the infrastructure that will allow the automation, much more efficiency than we have today. And I talk about all the transportation modes. Of course, I mean, from my perspective, it would be good to have the automation, especially on the rail side. But I mean all of them, because we need much higher efficiency, much lower consumption of the fossil fuel, much higher, I would say, share of the electric energy or green energy that we use for that.
So you would say, because Agnieszka mentioned a bottleneck that we are having, and Elena was pointing out, both Agnieszka and Elena were pointing out the problem of the lack of the proper connection on the north-south axis, and you are pointing out that these bottlenecks as well when it comes to the technology and being efficient enough when it comes to
that's what I mean. That's both. We need both the hard infrastructure, because without, so to say, the roads and the rails, you will not be able to move the vehicles. But at the same time, you have to move them in an efficient way. Otherwise, you will be really wasting the resources. And that's what we do today. We really waste the resources. So we need to provide more, I would say, technology for the automation, for the control command system across all the transportation modes that would allow us point-to-point mobility, using, of course, the capability of each individual transportation modes, but really automate it. So digitalize, investing into the new 5G connectivity system. So having the robust connectivity that would allow us to move both the people as well as the goods in an efficient way. And I really mean both, because although we may believe of the localization of the industries, the industry is global. We will still live in the global or in a worldwide network, a worldwide web of the industries, and we will need to shift the goods from one part of the world to another one. So the freights will need to be transported in any case. Then you can question whether we will need that much for the people. That will be a good question, but still the mobility for persons will be essential. You will need to not only to see like we see each other today on an occasional basis, online, but the personal contacts will still remain essential also in the future, even if limited. So that's something for which we again need to build the green mobility scheme for entire Europe.
Thank you very much, Libor. Daniel, the very same question to you, and as well to move further on, what kind of the input we can expect from the American partners in facing and dealing with the needs we have?
Sure. Glad to tackle it, Marek. Well, let me focus first on perhaps some solutions or some opportunities that arise from this crisis. And then I'll be projecting them from the perspective of a group of companies that both build all sorts of infrastructure, smart city infrastructure, energy, telecom, as well as heavy brick and mortar infrastructure, such as bridges, and also from the shoes of an investor in infrastructure, which we also are. I think just building on what Elena and Agnieszka were saying earlier, I think the investment in infrastructure is critical now, and the opportunity that this crisis brings us is to cut red tape and catalyze the actual investments. What do I mean by that? Just how governments and companies have been digitalized so quickly thanks to this crisis, processes that otherwise would have lasted years. It is time now to catalyze and debureaucratize investments in infrastructure once and for all. We're talking about a new deal in the fashion of the 30s, last century, to catalyze our resurgence from an economic depression, from the recession, and to spur economies back. With infrastructure, which is perhaps the best vehicle to catalyze a new deal, the trouble is infrastructure is slow, comes with big projects, and if you don't pay enough attention, you'll end up wasting 2 years just planning for it. And the opportunity to make the money flow into the economy, to reach the people, to catalyze investments is gone. Therefore, we have to move quickly. Yes, we have been used, just like Elena was saying, to central governments not coordinating with local governments. We have been used to having fragmented mentalities among Eastern European states. That does not happen in the United States, for instance, and should not happen when you want to tackle a crisis through investments in infrastructure, which are great. The European Green Deal is great. What the European Union is doing to invest in infrastructure is great. But we have to debureaucratize. We have to cut red tape and just start doing it.
And remove the bottleneck of the bureaucracy. So it's pretty much about, I'm sorry, Agnieszka, that I'm using the point you made at the very beginning, but removing the bottlenecks in many ways, technological, infrastructural, and bureaucratic. We have to, it went so fast. To every panelist, just one sentence about what is the most positive thing that American partners can bring to dealing with the challenge we are having. Agnieszka, one sentence, please. I'm sorry, this is a tough job.
If it is like really one sentence, it's a big challenge. I will try with two. My thinking is, the US need to find the niche where they can really play and make a difference. We've heard so much about the European Green Deal and how much money and how much initiatives are going to result from this. So my thinking is that US needs to bring something that is additional to what we already are discussing. And this can certainly be technology and know-how. Things like open data, things like smart cities, things like technology and bringing this to build really built for purpose infrastructure is, in my opinion, number one that I would advise the US government and also private investors to bring to this part of the world.
Thank you very much. Elena?
I couldn't leave this meeting without mentioning the 3 Cs initiative. This is essential, and this is the way in which America may be present, and I would hate to use the word return because I don't want to see America leaving Europe in any way. I think that we need to make sure that this relationship heals from certain hiccups that have been noticed lately, and I do hope that once the political expediency is resolved towards the end of the year, we will have the same healthy relationship and cooperation with the US as we've always had. But practically, the 3 Cs initiatives need to move forward. We need to reconsider some ideas at the EU about, let's say, digital sovereignty. which may turn out to be a dangerous path if it only means to dissociate ourselves from the big ones in America. That's not the good way to go. Or some kind of EU autonomy, which is very important. It is needed, but we have to make sure that it's an autonomy which stands within a transatlantic context.
Thank you very much, Elena. Libor?
Yes, I mean, from my perspective, clearly what we can take it from the US will be the courage of the private investors to invest into the infrastructure, both hard and, as I said, the connectivity and automation. That's what we could take from them. And of course, the experiences from the public-private investment projects.
So we want the courage of the Warren Buffett and like him going into the
precisely
rail industry. Daniel,
yeah,
your point at the end.
As Libor, PPPs, just like the US does with its states and federal system, they should teach us do more in Europe and in Eastern Europe. They should help us create infrastructure, a more liquid asset class. Agnieszka was saying there's a 3 trillion infrastructure gap. There are 1.5 trillion private equity dry powder money awaiting to be invested. Infrastructure is a great place to invest money, especially in times of crisis. Let's help bridge that gap. That's what the US should do.
Thank you very much, Daniel Farmach, Libor Lochman, Agnieszka Gajewska, and Elena Popdorova. Thank you very much.